Over the last several seasons, we've filmed more than a few successful deer hunts out of this spot where I'm standing at right now. And I've been asked a lot of questions about why the field looks so odd behind me here and what we do with these strips. So I want to talk a little bit about how we set up our fields on our hunt spots and why we do what we do. There is a method to the weird looking strips. So what I'll do as we move throughout these next few weeks, the area that I'm standing in right now is about 1/4 of an acre cleared area that I will plant in food plot, in just a little hidey hole food plot. It'll have chicory and wheat, maybe some peas in there, some winter peas, and that'll be about it. And up and down these strips, we'll do the same thing. We'll have the same thing planted in these strips. And everything around it will leave grown up, and just we're going to let it continue to go throughout the summer and let it get as tall as we can let it get. What that does is we take and we're going to show you here in just a minute how these roads interconnect inside all of this tall stuff that wraps down through here. Now, this is about a 25-acre field, and in this field we have got an interwoven system of trails and single wide, just 4-foot wide cuts that we make just for the deer to travel. And they travel on them quite a bit. It's something that has worked for us for a long time now. And by leaving the growth grown up around these trails and these setups, the deer feel comfortable standing in there. They'll come in there in the daylight and they'll feed. The food is just enough to slow them down long enough for you to be able to evaluate the deer and see what it is, or maybe get a shot at it. And the reason I do several of the strips is so that as a deer passes through the field, I've got several different opportunities to be able to assess the deer and see if it is indeed one that I'm after. And you know, it gives me several opportunities for them to come out into the clearing and me to be able to have a possible shot at them or get a better look at them. So that's what we do with these systems, is we cut through the tall stuff and leave as much cover as possible. Food is great for deer, but there's a lot of food out there available for the deer already. They've survived for a long time without us feeding them. So I do some food, but it's more so to slow the deer down and stomp that deer in front of myself or whoever I have hunting with me at the time, to be able to, again, just get a nice clean shot at the deer, or be able to evaluate the deer better, whatever we want to do. The food allows that to happen. And it also gives a place where my does continuously want to be. The does come in here and they feed heavily starting in here, you know, probably early November. They really start feeding on our food plots a lot heavier then, and they come off of a more stricter diet on acorns. They kind of spend their September and most of their October on acorns, and then after October, when they quit feeding on the acorns so much, they'll start getting in here and eating in these food plots. So the more does that I can have in here feeding in my plots and out in front of these blinds, the better off I am during the rut. So really what you're trying to do and accomplish in what we do here is you're trying to attract as many does to the area as possible. And we have quite a few does that are in here with fawns this year, and we do every year because they feel comfortable in here and they know that there's plenty of food around, there's plenty of natural food. And then here in a little while we'll be adding some green fields and some things that they can kind of browse on throughout the winter, and they know that that's here year in and year out. Every year we've always put it in for them, and so the does kind of tend to hang around in this area quite a bit, especially around the rut period, and that's exactly what brings your bucks in here. So being on a smaller property like we usually are, that kind of gives us the advantage. A lot of people think it's really the food, but it's not the food as much as it is the cover, allowing plenty of cover in here for your does to be able to have their fawns safely in the summertime and rear them here, but also then just enough cover that will hold the deer in here year round, that they feel comfortable to bed on your property. And in our case, we have some water on this property, and we'll also add a little bit of food. And when you add all of those together on the same place, whether it's 40 acres or 400 acres, you're going to increase the amount of deer that are using the area. So that's what we do to kind of ensure that we have a good rut every year on these farms, is we just provide as much cover for the deer, as much natural cover as possible, and then habitat edge. And edge is kind of what I'm talking about by cutting these fields and leaving the high spots and high ridges, because this causes habitat change or edge. And that edge is something that deer like to have. They like habitat change, and they'll a lot of times will travel along these edges which is why we have so much success with them traveling these roadways and the wood lines along where we've cut trails through the tall grown-up brush. So they feel the comfort of having the brush around them and plenty of bedding cover. However, the ease of movement with the trails cut down through there for them to be able to travel and get back and forth through the path of least resistance. All right, now I'm standing here right now at one of our blinds, and this is one of the sniper hide blinds, and we've hunted out of these for several years now. And I leave these out year round. Now I try to make sure that it's in a shady spot, because if it's in too bright a sun, it can fade the blind over time. Any blind can fade in time, but if you keep it out of the sun like I have this one, they last a long time without really fading. And I've got it set just a little bit low. You can see the blind is actually set up to be below the field that I'm standing in just a little bit, and it's kind of brushed in. The way we set a blind, we don't want to cut an area out and then go in there and set a blind. What we usually will do is go in the woods, set the blind, and then cut our way out, away from it, so that it'll stay as concealed as possible. And as it sits here long enough, the deer get used to them and they'll walk right past them. We have a lot of success out of these blinds, and Richard and I filmed some pretty good hunts out of this one last year out of this same blind. What I want to show you now though is what's around this blind and why we have it set up where we have it set up, because just like the last stand we showed you, this one there's a specific reason that it's set up where it's at, and we're going to show you why. And I'm going to walk you down here where this is going to be part of the same system that we were showing you from the other blind, the same road system that's cut throughout all of this tall brush. And I'm going to walk you out in front here and just kind of show you guys what it is that we use to have these deer cross in these particular areas and why this blind is set up where it's at. As you can tell right now, I'm standing in a four-way intersection, and we're right at 30 yards out in front of the blind right now. What happens is these deer, they come in and they'll intersect and cross on these roads that we've mowed directly across from one another. And right here there's actually two trails that split off the end of this road, the road that we're on, which again will be planted, and then a double crossing right here at 30 yards. So the goal is that the deer will travel down these roadways and end up eventually either at our 20-yard trail, our 30-yard trail, or we have a 45-yard trail. And that way, it puts them at least close to within bow range as they come across through here. And we have the opportunity at that point to be able to try to get a shot as they cross through. It's a great and productive way of being able to hunt off the ground during bow season. A lot of folks that know me know that I'm not a big tree stand kind of guy, so I like to hunt off the ground, and I've developed ways that have worked very well for me over the years of being able to hunt off the ground or at a very low height, because I'm just not a height person. So this is how we like to set up, and it brings these deer right through here on these crossings for us. And this past season we had a lot of luck right here at this very same one, and we're already set up for it this year and looking forward to being able to hunt these bucks again at this crossing right here in these roads.